Oh man, it is another episode of Cafe Crash. I'm your host, Daniel Crosier, and we're here with Wally Wallace, the amazing Wally Wallace. How are you, sir?
I am doing well. How about yourself?
Oh, I am intact. That's good enough.
Yeah, that is good enough.
Yeah, I got my coffee, so we're doing even better. Uh, you know, Wally, I met you years ago when you were doing sex pot comedy, and you've always seemed to have your foot in stand up and comedy performance and stuff. Yeah, tell us a little bit about yourself. How you got into that, and also how you got into local government because you're in Trinidad now.
Yeah. So yeah, no, it's kind of interesting. One thing that a lot of people think that is not the case is I am actually not a comedian. I have never done comedy performance before. There's actually a lot of newspaper articles that include stories about me in them that talk about me being a comedian, and all the
Yeah.
comedians I know are like, you get more credit for being a comedian than I do. But I was originally a musician. I was a singer and a guitarist in a band.
Kidding.
And then I started getting involved with radio just to tap more into the music industry.
Yeah.
Worked in radio for about 10 years, was the promotions director for KG&U in Boulder for a while.
Sweet. Nice.
And loved community radio. Did not like the music industry. I just I don't know. I just didn't have the best experience with like some of the big music promoters that kind of dominated the industry. And I'm more of a grassroots type person who is less into like the big corporate type of business models. And so I decided to step away from radio. And right after I did that, I actually was approached by Andy Jewett, who was one of the owners of Sexpot Comedy, wanting me to come work for them. And so I was like, cool. I'd promoted some comedy shows before, and I actually was a filmmaker on the side and had done a comedy film, and that is where I first met Andy Jewett.
What was the film?
It was called Tokeezy. I wrote and directed that. Well, co-directed that. I wrote it and co-directed it with a guy named Sean Williams.
Nice.
Which is actually funny. It's a marijuana satire about some guys who they clean dead people's houses for a living, and one of the old ladies who died ended up having a secret marijuana grow room hidden in her basement. They decide to open up a marijuana speakeasy called the Tokeezy.
Nice.
And I wrote it and co-directed with this guy Sean Williams. And it's funny because Sean Williams' father is actually Wayne Williams, who is was the Secretary of State of Colorado.
Right.
And so I'm always going to have that as something I think is funny, that I made a weed movie with the Secretary of State's son.
Well, that seems really appropriate now, since weeds has been legal for quite a while here in Colorado.
So we made this the year before it became legal. That was part of the thing, was like we wanted to make this movie before it became legal. And so we did that, and then through doing the film work, I met Andy Jewett. He asked me to come work for Sexpot Comedy when I stepped away from KG&U Radio. And I had met Kayvon Khalidbari, who is the other owner of Sexpot Comedy. Yeah. But we didn't know each other very well. We had just met once or twice before. So I went and worked for them and just really embedded myself in the comedy community, became to the best of my ability, a big support mechanism for a lot of comedians and a lot of producers to be able to create their content and bring their ideas to life.
Oh, cool.
And it was a cool role, but I was working a whole lot, not making a whole lot of money, living in Denver, which is a pretty expensive city to live in.
Yeah.
And so I was working like 90 hours a week, like really crunching away until finally I kind of had like a little bit of like a quarter life crisis, I guess, and went on the road to actually work on this film project that I was working on with Sexpot Comedy and Denver Open Media.
Oh, cool.
And then when I went to Telluride and Durango to meet with the television stations there.
Yeah.
I actually had lived in both of those towns before. I went to college in Durango.
Oh,
And
cool.
then I spent 2 years living in Telluride running their bungee trampoline right after college. And so I went back to those towns and loved them, still love those towns, and decided I kind of wanted to go back to that type of lifestyle, get away from the city.
Yeah.
And but both of those towns are really expensive too. Telluride is more expensive than Denver, and Durango is about as expensive as Denver. So then I was coming back, and I actually drove through Monte Vista, Colorado, and it was somewhat abandoned, and there were houses for sale for like $60,000.
Oh,
and
wow.
I was like, "Oh my god!" Like I didn't know there's anywhere in Colorado that has houses for $60,000.
Yeah. Right.
Yeah. And so I got back to Denver, and I got online, and I started looking like where are other places that are cheap in Colorado.
Yeah.
And I ended up finding this really beautiful house in Trinidad, Colorado for $80,000. And I was like, oh my God, I need to go check that out. Called up a buddy, kind of blew off my girlfriend at the time, which was a bad idea, and went down to Trinidad. And I really fell in love with it. I had never actually like explored the town before. I'd only driven through a handful of times.
Okay.
But when I got out and like checked out Main Street, checked out Commercial Street, it was just really comparable with Durango and Telluride, in my opinion. And I ended up not buying that $80,000 house. It needed a whole lot of work. But I did end up finding a house for like $140,000 that was in a really great part of town, really nice and fixed up already. And so I dropped everything I had been doing in Denver, borrowed some money, got investors for this comedy festival project, and went down here and bought a house. And through the comedy festival 2 years ago, and that's what we're doing again this year. But
Yeah.
yeah, so that's what brought me to Trinidad, and that's how I got into comedy. I actually got into city government with Trinidad because originally when I came down here to do the comedy festival, it was an economic development project. It was a plan like in Telluride. Well, a lot of people don't know this about Telluride nowadays, but in the 50s and the 60s, Telluride was a very, very depressed economy. Probably one of the worst economies in the entire state, because there was no ski resort there. There were no summer festivals there. It was just an old mining town that had been forgotten, that most people had left, that was 6 hours away from any major city. Right. And there actually were some programs they started there that basically started giving houses away for free if you'd come out to Telluride and move in there and start establishing yourself in that community and improving it. And within a few years, some of those people got involved with city council. They ended up purchasing the mountain and then selling it to the ski resort, which opened the ski resort up. And then they started the Telluride Bluegrass Festival, which was the first of their major festivals. And now Telluride has the ski industry that is their driving force in the wintertime. And they have the festival season that happens in the summer. That's their driving economic force in the summer. And they actually have it set up that every single weekend from the beginning of the summer until fall, they have a festival, except for one weekend. And that's the weekend they call No Fest. And that's when all of the locals ride down Main Street naked on their bicycles.
That still goes on?
Oh yeah, totally.
Wow.
I showed up one year with a video camera. I was the weirdo with the video camera, filming everybody cycling.
You didn't hop on your bike?
I don't think I had a bike at that time, actually, when I was living there.
You're gonna have to remedy that.
Oh yeah, totally. But I loved Telluride. Thought that there could be something similar that happens here, of coming here, investing in outdoor recreation and festivals and tourism activities. And so came down to do the comedy festival. Just mainly did the comedy festival because, like I said, I'm a little jaded on the music industry, so didn't want to do a music festival, and
Yeah.
already had all these connections in comedy. And like I said, it's also, in addition to the festival, is the outdoor recreation component. Without
Right.
the ski resort, Telluride wouldn't have ever become Telluride. And Trinidad doesn't have ideal skiing conditions,
Right.
but it is a wonderful place for bicycling.
Yeah.
Good weather most of the year. Doesn't get too hot, doesn't get too cold. And so we actually decided to throw this Southwest Chief Bicycle and Comedy Festival. And there's bicycling activities during the day and comedy events at night. And then one other really important component that I should just say about that festival that we're playing, not doing it this year, but was an important component of the first year and where it got its name, is Trinidad, in addition to being on the interstate, is the halfway station on the Amtrak train that connects Chicago to Los Angeles.
Okay, cool.
And with those being two major comedy towns, we're like, why don't we bring in some comedians from LA, bring in some comedians from Chicago on the train, have them meet in the middle, and have a big comedy festival?
Yeah,
So,
most definitely.
Yeah, so that first year we brought 25 comedians by train to meet 60 comedians that were already here, and through a big 3-day comedy festival. This year we are not doing the train thing, but that is actually mainly because of the pandemic. A lot of the comedians aren't super enthusiastic about getting on a train for 20 hours. And then also the train during the pandemic cut down their schedule from 7-day-a-week service to 3 days a week service.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, and they're supposed to be kicking it back up, I believe, in May. But but for now they're on half service. So this year we're just flying people in, driving people in, however it works best. Our main headliner, Beth Stelling, who's headlining Saturday night, she's actually driving out here all the way from Los Angeles because she didn't want to fly, didn't want to take a train. And so she's taking a car and getting here, and she's going to come for all 3 days of the fest. So it should be fun.
That's cool. How long of a drive is it from LA?
I want to say it's like 16 hours.
That's not too bad. Elise and I do 24 hours straight, going here back and forth to her beach house and stuff. So, but that's that's pretty nuts. And by the end of it, we're like seeing multiple roads on that one road and stuff. Our vision splits, and it becomes way more entertaining that way.
Oh yeah,
sure. But no,
that's your head out the window.
That'll be a lot of fun though. How many comedians are you having this time around? Because a lot of it is, and correct me if I'm wrong, is a lot of it outdoors with social distancing. Obviously, you're encouraged to wear masks and stuff like that.
Yeah, we're actually doing that. That was the big thing about it this year, and like we had to not do it last year because of the pandemic, and then this year, pretty early on, I decided that we wanted to do it, really wanted to bring it back. I got asked by everybody every day all over town, like, are you doing it again? Are you doing it again?
Right. People are antsy. They want something to look forward to.
Totally. And so I actually decided back in September or October that we were going to do it, but that we were going to do it outside to do outdoor socially distance. And the thing about Trinidad is that we are designated with the state liquor authority as an entertainment district where we can close down certain parts of our downtown area to vehicular traffic and have open container laws where you can buy alcohol in the restaurants and bars around town in special cups, and then you can take those cups out onto the streets.
Yeah.
And so we decided for this event, we're going to activate the entertainment district. So we're actually going to be closing down 9 blocks of Trinidad, 6 of them on Main Street and 3 of them on Commercial Street. And then we're going to set up 3 different stages, one on each side of Main Street and then one on Commercial. And basically each of those seats is going to have at least 150, or each of those stages is going to have at least 150 seats.
Okay.
all spaced out and everything. And those seats are actually going to be around a stage, and it's all going to be roped off.
Okay.
And so everyone's still going to be able to get down into downtown, still going to be open to pedestrian traffic. People can go to restaurants, bars, whatever shops they want to go to. But in order to get into that roped off seating area, they actually have to purchase a festival branded face mask.
Okay.
And so that's the way that we're encouraging people to wear masks, do the event socially distanced outdoors.
Yeah.
So instead of wristbands this year, we're going to have face masks, and that's how people can get into the seating area. All the comedians that are performing, we're going to have face shields provided for them. So you'll still be able to see them and everything like that, but they're going to be protected, and the audience can be protected. And then it's also going to allow other restaurants in downtown to be able to set up all their seating outside too, and serve people out in the streets, and just really activate everything in a smart, safe way, hopefully.
Nice. That I think that'll be absolutely hilarious to see somebody like Ben Roy with a face shield.
Yeah, I think so too. I think that'll be part of the. I'm sure that almost every comedian will do some sort of reference to it in their set.
Yeah. I've seen him a couple times live, and he spits a lot, so that'll help us.
Yeah, that's hilarious. No, I'm really excited to get Ben Roy down here. It's actually kind of funny. Last year, we got some really awesome comedians. Our headliners were David Bory and Billy Wayne Davis. Cool. And David Bory, he's actually the voice of Comedy Central. So he does all like the commercials and like promo stuff for Comedy Central. He's the voice for that. And he's actually from Colorado. He went to high school with Sam Talent.
Cool.
Yeah. And then,
your hosts are Sam Talent and Nathan Lund too.
Yep, exactly. So yeah, Sam and David Bory are really good friends. David Bory is actually coming back this year, but he's not going to be one of our main headliners just because we already had him as the headliner 2 years ago. Okay. He will be performing again. Billy Wayne Davis, we didn't reach out to him this year. He's a great comedian, but he's just kind of far away where David Bory was in Denver, so we knew it'd be easier to get him out here.
Nice.
But this year we're bringing Beth Stelling, who she just got her first HBO special in October.
Sweet.
And I've probably known Beth for like 8 years, and she is one of the sweetest, most enjoyable comedians to work with I've ever been around.
Cool.
And then Ben Roy, who is not from Denver, but he started his comedy career in Denver.
Yeah.
And is really embedded in the Denver comedy scene, but also had a television show on True TV for 3 years called Those Who Can't.
Yeah, that was spectacular.
Yeah. So we're really excited to bring both of them because, I started saying this and then just started talking about other things. When we first started the festival 2 years, they were actually the two that I wanted to bring. They were the two that I wanted to be the main headliners the first year. But Beth was unavailable because she was working on a television show at the time.
Oh,
and
cool.
Ben Roy was unavailable because he was doing a festival with his band, Spells.
Yeah, nice.
Yep. And so couldn't get him 2 years ago, but with the pandemic, nobody is doing anything right now.
Right.
So it was easy to get them this year. So
everybody's available.
Yeah.
Excellent. What was the TV show that Beth was working on? It'd be cool to look that up.
I don't know specifically what one she was working on then, but she actually works on a lot of television.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, look her up on Wikipedia. I can't remember exactly which shows, but she both acts in a lot of shows, and she's a staff writer for several shows.
Oh, sweet. That's cool.
No, she's a pro. She's real great. Actually, what's funny is I thought she was a little bit older than me because she's kind of killing it out there. Mm-hmm. And then I looked it up last week, and I'm like, oh man, she's like 1 year older than me. She's like blowing it away.
Well, you can watch Those Who Can on HBO Max now too.
Yep, totally. So, and Ben Roy is recording his third. It might even be his fourth. I can't remember. Either his third or fourth.
Yeah, I think
comedy album this weekend.
Yeah, he's been a bunch of sold out shows. I think at Comedy Works. I can't remember if it's South or North.
I think it's South. Yep.
South. Okay. Yeah, man, that's cool. Yeah, those guys are killing it. So, what other comedians are you bringing out that that you're really looking forward to? That you've seen before.
Actually, right when I get off this call with you, I'm going to be talking to Danny Maupin.
Okay.
He actually came out 2 years ago with Tyler Jackson. The two of them live in LA, and they actually put on this comedy show called Late Late Breakfast.
Okay.
And cool. Late Late Breakfast is my favorite live comedy show I've ever been to in my entire life.
Nice.
They brought it to the High Plains Comedy Festival probably 4 years ago when I went and saw it.
Okay.
And I have never laughed harder at a live comedy show. It's basically, instead of like a standard comedy showcase where you bring in people that do like 10-minute sets, 15-minute sets, 20-minute sets, so forth, they book like 20 comedians on their show, and they give them each like less than 5-minute sets. But then in addition to doing their set, they make them do another obstacle while doing it. So basically, like one of the ones I saw was, okay, you got to do your set, but while you're doing it, people are going to line up to arm wrestle you, and you have to arm wrestle anybody who lines up to like wrestle with you while you're doing your set.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
That sounds amazing.
Oh, it's funny. And there was one that was so good that was like, you have to do your set, but this person is going to come stand on the stage with you, and they're going to be trying to get off the stage, and you have to do whatever you can to keep this person from getting off of the stage.
Oh my God.
And so literally they're like on the floor with their like arms like wrapped around the person's legs, like trying to talk into the microphone. And yeah, it's a really, really good show.
It sounds brilliant. Oh my God.
Yeah, so that one is not totally solidified yet, but I'm pretty sure we're going to get it there today.
Cool.
I think we're going to do that at 2 p.m. the Saturday of the festival.
Whatever you do, just make sure they don't get off that stage.
Yeah.
Get them. Just, if you have to call up and I've got your daughter. Oh, well, that's weird. Well, it's the other one that nobody knows about. Wink, wink, nudge, nudge. That sounds so awesome. Hopefully that. Well, I mean, you got to work out the details, so hopefully you'll be able to announce that pretty soon.
Yeah, honestly, like I'm 90% sure we'll be able to make it happen. Cool. Actually, it's kind of funny. Danny, like I said, there's been a lot of comedians that I really like that we brought last year that I just haven't invited them just because of the pandemic and not knowing about travel, like bringing them out here and everything like that. And so specifically, Danny and Tyler were two that I really wanted to, but I didn't invite them. And then I actually I had sushi with Sam Talent like a week ago. And he was like, hey, you should invite them. Like, I've been talking to them, and they would really like to come back, and they would come pretty cheap if you, like, could get them. And so I reached out to them, and Danny was like, man, I'm actually in LA, and I'm losing my mind. I just want to get out of LA really bad. Right. I haven't been able to get vaccinated. Do you think I could come next week, get vaccinated, and stay until the festival? And I was like,
so much, yeah,
probably. Like, and so we found him a place to stay, and so that's part of what I'm going to be talking to him about today. Is if that's still the plan, and if he wants to come and stay leading up to it. So
nice.
Yeah, so we'll see. I don't know if I've ever told you this before. I think you might get a kick out of this.
I probably will. I'm just guessing. I don't know what you're going to say, but I'll say yes.
The first year, we brought, I think, 16 podcasts to record their podcast live from the festival.
Nice.
And actually, that might be something we could even think about, maybe doing a cafe crash at the festival since you're already coming down.
Yeah, I'd be up for it. I can bring my laptop. I just need a power supply and Wi-Fi, you know.
Okay. Well, have I told you where we do those podcast recordings?
It better be someplace nefarious.
It is the town funeral home.
Oh, that's awesome. That place is nuts.
Yeah.
God,
but we
what
are
a great place to have a party during a funeral.
totally. Yeah. So we're going to be taking over the funeral home for 3 days.
Cool.
So
Cool.
nobody better die those days. Even though, honestly, I'm pretty sure last time somebody did die and they told them you have to wait a couple days until the comedy festival's over and then we'll have the funeral. But I'm pretty sure the entire comedy festival, there was like a dead body in the next room over.
That sounds fun. That sounds very endearing.
Yeah.
Like, hey, if you can't do comedy around a dead body, you shouldn't do comedy.
Totally.
Hey there, Mr. Stiffy. Yeah, it's just like I love your toe tag. It's very.
So yeah, we're going to be doing podcasts in the funeral home again, and
excellent.
We're bringing back one called Dead Things because it just seemed appropriate to do the Dead Things podcast in the funeral home. Jose McCall is a comedian based out of Denver that I really like a lot, and he actually does a podcast called the 3 a.m. podcast, where he calls people at 3 o'clock in the morning to interview them.
And, well, I get up at 3 a.m. Give him my number.
Yeah, totally. He's going to do 3 episodes of the 3 a.m. podcast.
Oh my God!
All 3 nights of the festival at the funeral home at 3 a.m. So.
Well, I also do that COFO Live and Undead for the Colorado Festival of Horror. So it'd be fun to interview the funeral director.
Oh yeah. He's a cool guy. He's a character. Yeah.
I think, didn't we meet him when we were down there visiting with you last and you were showing us around?
Yeah, probably. He's a good friend of mine. He was one of, it's actually funny. Before I moved down here, I spoke about this earlier, that I was doing a lot of work with Denver Open Media.
Yeah.
And when I left, the executive director of Denver Open Media told me that he's like, oh, I actually was approached by a guy that wants to start a public access TV station in Trinidad. So he's down there.
Right.
And then I met up with this girl named Darby and told her that I worked in TV. And she's like, oh, have you met Tom yet? He has a TV station. And I was like, oh, where? I didn't know there was a TV station in town. And she's like, oh, it's actually in the basement of the funeral home.
Cool.
And I was like, okay, that's weird. I got to meet this guy. And,
that's awesome.
So I ended up, he actually films all of the city council meetings. And so I saw him at a city council meeting one night filming, and I was like, okay, you're that guy. And I went to talk to him, and he did not seem very interested in talking with me until I told him that I had worked at Denver Open Media. And then he wanted to really pick my brain about his public access TV station. And so we ended up connecting, hanging out a bit. And then he asked me, or he basically said, I want you to use my funeral home for the comedy festival. And I was like, cool, like, how about we do the podcast there? And he was like, absolutely, let's do it. And then I ended up coming to him like 3 weeks before the comedy festival. I'm like, all right, well, you said you wanted to do it. How do you feel about 16 podcasts in the funeral home? And he was like, that sounds great. Let's do it. And he ended up like helping with almost every single one of them.
Oh, that's cool. That's so sweet.
No, he's way cool. And then honestly, after the comedy festival, I didn't really know what I was doing with my life because it was before I had gotten the city job, which actually I never said that. After I did the comedy festival, I was encouraged to apply for this job for the city because that was just a big economic development project that most people felt was a success. But between when I finished the comedy festival and when I got the job for the city, I was looking for jobs and wasn't really having a lot of luck finding jobs that I really wanted to do. And I actually came this close to moving back to Denver and just renting my house in Trinidad because I just didn't know if I was going to find the right job for me. And during that time, that rough period in my life, also I had broken up with the girl that I had blown off to come to Trinidad.
Life lessons.
I was hired by Tom to help him move dead bodies.
Okay.
And so that was what I did for a little while in between jobs.
Yeah. How long did you do that? Like for a couple months or a couple weeks? Or
I think I helped him with like 4.
Oh, so, okay.
Yeah, just like 4 scattered throughout the summer.
Yeah, what's that experience like?
It was interesting. I found out that old people that are dead are actually a lot lighter than you might think they would be.
Interesting.
Yeah.
It's because their soul has escaped their body.
That's right.
That's what makes them lighter.
I'm ducking for 1 second, but that's just because I forgot to plug in my computer before we started this.
Yeah. Definitely do that. It's unfashionable to have a dead battery.
Yes. So we're doing the podcast at the funeral home.
That's cool.
We are gonna hopefully do a family-friendly comedy show indoors at Main Street Live, but to a limited. What is that? That's
pretty interesting. You know what? Generally when I go to a comedy show, I'm usually looking for a lot of raunch. But you know, there are quite a few comedians out there that do very safe material. Like, you know, obviously one of the more notable ones I go to and think of is somebody like Jerry Seinfeld. You know, what are some of your favorite comedians that you're bringing out? You know, for a nice family show.
I'd really like to get Dr. Kevin Fitzgerald.
Okay.
He actually has not responded to my request of him attending yet or not. So I need to reach back out to him and see if I can get him down here. But he lives in Denver. He is a veterinarian and a comedian.
Right.
So he does, great guy. He does a lot of stuff that's focused on like educating kids about animals while also telling jokes and being fun. Yeah. So I'd really like to get him out here again. There is Aaron Maslow is a comedian that primarily does family-friendly type of stuff.
Oh, nice.
And he actually specifically does a show called Your Dad's Comedy Show that's supposed to be comedy for kids and parents. And specifically, I think we're going to get Trinidad Lounge, which we're colloquially getting called the Dad Lounge, to sponsor Your Dad's Comedy Show. Those are two that I'm really trying to get down here for that. And there's just a few sprinkled here that do both more raunchy content and more clean content, depending on their audience. And honestly, this year, we'll see how this goes over, and we'll see. I have basically asked every comedian that is coming to try their best to do a cleaner set.
With Ben Roy, good luck. Again, he spits.
Oh yeah, totally. Different kind of dirty.
Dude, you got to dry him out first.
Yeah, but the big thing for me, even though I like raunchy comedy, I like it all, is just because we're doing it out in the streets this year. That's open to everybody. Yeah. I'm trying to be a little bit more conscious of like not trying to offend too many people. But we'll see. I know that some comedians are totally not going to listen to me and do whatever they want.
They're the rebels. They're the punk stars of today.
That's right.
Still, that's so cool. Now, you know, back when you started this out, I mean, which really came first? Did the comedy festival come first, and then you were like kind of seeking out, you know, a town like that? Or did you just, you know, when you were driving through Trinidad, you're like, hey, here's a nice inexpensive house, and it's like, but wouldn't this place be awesome to have an intimate comedy festival? You know, what was your frame frame of mind? You know,
I'd say closer to the second one.
Okay.
Like, I don't know, like I like doing the comedy festival. I think it's fun, and I think that it falls within like my realm of like talents to be able to put on something like that. But like putting a comedy festival on was never like a passion. Like it was never like a life goal of mine or anything like that. It really was. I came to Trinidad, really fell in love with this town, but thought that it needed more activities and more events that brought people in. Trinidad's really a unique town. It used to be one of the biggest cities in Colorado. And in 1940, Trinidad is the 5th biggest city in Colorado, behind Denver, Pueblo, Colorado Springs, Greeley, and Trinidad. So it's bigger than Boulder, bigger than Fort Collins, bigger than Grand Junction, Durango. And it still has like remnants of that around. Like there's a lot of awesome, incredible historic buildings.
Yeah.
But the first weekend that I came was actually the weekend after one of their biggest festivals, and specifically their festival that is kind of like the close of the tourism season. So
Right.
when I showed up, almost every restaurant in town was closed. Most of the businesses were closed. Like literally we couldn't find like a place to eat. Like, and it was just like, oh my God, this town is incredible, but it's empty and there's nobody here.
Yeah.
And so I'd come to check it out with my buddy Chris, and we both left thinking that there was like potential, that this has potential to be like a really incredible town, but that it needed things that brought or gave people a reason to stop here.
Right.
Because the big thing is Trinidad is a major hub. Our highway here that connect. For those of you that don't know, Trinidad is right next to the New Mexico border.
Yep.
We are 12 miles from the New Mexico border. And the port of entry here on I-25 from New Mexico is actually the most frequent or second most frequented port of entry into the state of Colorado behind Denver International Airport.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah. So there are more cars driving into the state here than anywhere else in Colorado.
Yeah.
But,
when we were down there last, we saw tons of license plates from Texas, from New Mexico, from Arizona, from Oklahoma,
totally.
Nebraska. Yeah, I mean, you name it, Kansas, even Kansas.
Yeah. And so, so there's tons of people driving past Trinidad all the time, myself included. Like I said, I drove through Trinidad probably 30 times and had never gotten off the highway and stopped in downtown and checked it out. Just because I'd never heard that I needed to. Like nobody told me like, oh my God, that town's awesome. You should check out that town. And so I got off and I was like, man, there's already all these people coming through here. We just need to let more of them know, like, this is a town worth getting off the highway for and checking out. And I think more and more people are discovering that. And ultimately that was my goal, was rather than having Trinidad be the transit town that you stop at to pick up gas on your way to Aspen or Telluride or any of these other like big destination towns, that Trinidad should work on itself becoming a destination town.
Right. Most definitely. It sounds like you're on the way to doing that, not just with the festival, but being the economic development director. Is that your title?
Yes. I first started about a year and a half ago as the economic development coordinator. And then at the beginning of this year, they asked me to step into the director position. So
nice.
Yeah,
that's cool. Yeah, you've got even the weekend of the festival coming up. You've got a couple new businesses, opening its doors to was it bar and food service, and then also a bookstore and cafe.
Yep. Yeah. The folks who, well, it's actually funny. Mutiny is the bookstore and the coffee shop, and that's where we first met. I believe.
Right. It's my home away from home.
Totally. And my office when I worked for Sex Black Comedy was right above Mutiny.
Right.
And so they were involved in me coming to Trinidad ever since the very beginning.
Oh, no kidding.
The first time I came down here, I came back and I was telling Jim and Matt all about it, and they were like way into it.
Nice.
And the two people that helped me put on the festival the first year was actually Carlos Madrid.
I love Carlos.
And then Jake Becker, who is the comic book guy at Mutiny. And so the whole time, like, they were involved in everything. They knew everything that was happening with the festival, with me. And honestly, it was Jim. He was one of the people I came back and talked to when I was kind of in that quandary after the festival. Do I stay in Trinidad or do I go back to Denver? And he was like, you should stay in Trinidad and stuff like that. And then when I got this economic development job, they were probably the first business I hit up, being like, hey, you guys should think about coming to Trinidad. And they always kind of like amused the idea with me, like said like, oh yeah, that'd be cool. but would never say like, yeah, we're going to do that. But then I did get Kayvon Kalabari of Sex Spot Comedy, Sexy Pizza, to come visit me down here. And me and him are really good friends. And he ended up falling in love with it right away. The first weekend he went home and ended up putting offers on several buildings around town that he really liked. And after he had made that investment and really started moving his life down here in a lot of ways, Jim and Matt, who are also really good friends with him, were like, man, like, actually what they say when they tell the story is that they were coming down here to tell me to stop bugging them, that they weren't going to open a store in Trinidad. And then they came down here and they started walking down the streets and seeing like the monuments and the art pieces around town. Right. And that specifically most of the statues aren't honoring old, wealthy white guys. They're honoring labor rights activists and mine workers. And that really appealed to them, of being a place that honors this past of the workers and not the past of like the big rich guys. And so they were really into that. And then they ended up calling us and being like, we were going to say no, but like, we want to move down there. And cool. So so they ended up getting all set up for that. It was actually funny. Right after that time, I was hit up by Kurt and Suzanne, who own the High Dive in Denver. And Kurt was just like, hey, we put on a music festival just south of Trinidad every year. We love Trinidad. We've always thought it was really cool. And now we're seeing everything you're posting. And we kind of want to come check it out. We're thinking about maybe moving down there.
Nice.
And so I was like, cool, my Airbnb is yours. Come check it out. Stay for a weekend. We'll chat. And they came down, and I was actually sworn to secrecy at that time that I couldn't tell them the mutiny was coming.
Oh, okay.
But I had mentioned that Jim and Matt were like looking at it and thinking about it. And then when Kurt was here, I was like, man, I just heard like there's a business from Denver that's moving down here. And just right away, he's like, was it mutiny? Is it mutiny? Are they moving down here? And I was like, he can see through. But then he ended up hitting up Jim the next week and asking him if it was them. Yeah. And Jim told him that it was. And he's like, okay, we're doing it too. We're moving down.
That's so exciting. Well, yeah, they're neighbors. They work together quite a bit. So it makes total sense. Make it even more simpatico.
To me, it's hilarious because that part of Denver was my home in Denver. Like I lived a couple blocks from there. My girlfriend at the time lived a couple blocks from there. My swimming pool where I swam every day was right there. Cool. And my office was right there. And that was actually one thing about Denver. Everybody always complains about the traffic in Denver, but that wasn't really a big deal for me because my whole life was within like a 1 to 2 mile radius. So I didn't actually have to deal with traffic that much.
Nice.
But then when I left, that was still the part of Denver that I always considered my home. And now it's hilarious because so many of those people have decided to like relocate themselves here. And so it's a lot of my favorite parts of Denver are now here. And it's not just those guys. Since moving down here, and I'll say when I moved down here, I did not know anyone.
Right.
Like, I did not know one single person before I started the transition of moving here. I obviously made some friends with people like while I was in that transitional stage. Since moving down here, I have had 18 friends move to Trinidad.
No kidding. That's awesome.
Yeah. And including Matt Oren. He owned El Chorito and the Comedy Room in downtown Denver. It was actually like a karaoke bar that had a side room that they did comedy shows and was my favorite like downtown Denver bar. Yeah. And he ended up buying the house next door to me. He's now my next door neighbor here in Trinidad.
Great. Yeah. Now you're friends, and first you're friends, and now you're neighbors, and that it tends to just go downhill from there. So
yep, I did have to tell one of his contractors to stop parking in the alley.
Yeah. It's like, dude, you can't dump human waste in the alley like that. Okay, it becomes a scene out of National Lampoon's Christmas Vacation or some wonderful stuff like that.
Well, and actually, that's a funny story. I'm just going to bring that up right now.
Oh dear.
A lot of people don't know that Trinidad has the second largest art car parade in the country.
Right.
That is actually the festival that I showed up the week after when I first came down here and everything was closed.
Yeah, that thing is huge.
Oh yeah, it's awesome. It's the second biggest in the country, behind Houston and ahead of Seattle, which is, or it might be San Francisco, one of those two. And I think Seattle and San Francisco are 3 and 4. I can't remember which is which though.
Okay.
But yeah, pretty crazy. Those are some of the biggest cities in the country. And Trinidad's a town of 9,000 people. So to be like competing with
what's the turnout for that event in Trinidad then?
They have over 100 art cars that show up. And I think that's actually how they judge it, is the amount of participants that bring their art cars.
Not the attendees, but the participants.
Yeah, but there are several thousand people that show up for the event each year. It's the busiest I've ever seen downtown.
Yeah,
during the art car parade.
So since you've moved down there, you've experienced it firsthand.
Only once, because they had to cancel it this year.
That's right.
Yeah, so I did get to experience it one time, and I loved it. It's probably my favorite weekend in Trinidad.
Sweet.
But the thing, you were talking about the Griswolds vacation.
Yep.
They recently got donated to them a family truckster, like the car that they use in vacation. And they are decking it out as the vacation car, where they're going to have a dead grandma on the roof. They're going to be dragging a dog leash behind them.
Nice.
And they've actually asked me to be the driver of the vacation mobile for the art car parade.
Oh, that's awesome. That's hilarious. So, and that'll also be on display too at the art car museum, right?
Yep, it is there right now. It's actually parked right out front, and that's the whole reason they're asking me to drive it, is because on the back of it, it has a bumper sticker that says "I'd rather be Wally World."
Yeah. That's great, Wally. That's awesome.
But I love the art car parade. All the art cartists that live in town.
Yeah.
And Rodney Wood, the guy who first brought that into this community, is he's definitely a Trinidad treasure for sure.
Oh, we visited the museum. It's absolutely amazing. I think we might have talked to Ronnie for a little bit, because I think he's on site quite often.
Yeah, he's their only full-time paid staff member, so he is there most of the time.
Nice.
Really cool guy. Love that festival. There's a few other festivals in town too that are really good. There's the Trinidadia Blues Festival, which I actually believe that is the one that traditionally brings the most people to town.
Okay.
But they used to throw it in Central Park, so it's less people like downtown.
Okay.
But this year they're actually moving it to downtown and doing it much in the same way that we're doing the comedy festival with it, and the entertainment district, and putting stages in the streets and stuff.
That's awesome. Sounds like Trinidad's growing pretty well.
Yes, very much. It's actually, when I moved here 2.5 years ago, there were close to 200 houses on the market.
Okay.
3 weeks ago, there were 17.
Wow.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
So Trinidad is filling up quickly. A lot of people are getting turned on to the area. Denver Post did an article in October about Trinidad becoming the next great Colorado art community.
Right.
And then Westward at the end of the year ended up naming that as one of the top art and culture stories in Colorado in 2020, was that this is becoming such a big art town and community that's bringing a lot of people in. And then actually just 2 weeks ago, Velo News, which is one of the biggest bicycling magazines in the country, wrote a huge article about how Trinidad's about to become the gravel capital of the United States for gravel cyclists.
Oh, interesting.
So there's a lot of bicycle stuff coming to town. It's actually funny. Part of my goal is to, within the next few years, I want a national publication to name Trinidad as the best small town comedy town in the United States.
Excellent.
And I've gotten 3 really good comedians to move here so far. So
yeah,
we're going to keep working on it.
Is it Sam Talent and Nathan Lund?
Nathan Lund, Jay Gillespie, and Eric Lyons. And then Talitha Gillespie's also here. And so, yeah. And then there's a few others that have been looking into it. What's funny is Sam Talent specifically told me about a month ago. He's like, I would have moved there already, but my wife is stuck in Denver or stuck in Fort Collins becoming a doctor right now.
Oh.
And so, but honestly, when she's done with her residency, I would not be at all surprised if Sam Talent and Emily Talent end up moving down here as well.
That'd be great. And it's, it's halfway between LA and Chicago. So, if you got to go do a show, take the train.
On the train. Yeah. I love the train. I've had some good adventures on the train.
Cool.
And I'm all about it. Yeah. So halfway between Chicago and LA on the train, halfway between Santa Fe and Denver on the interstate. Right. So yeah, it's a really cool geographic location. The climate's really nice. It's beautiful. Yeah, it's a really great town. I have no regrets of moving here. It's been a good choice. And like I said, I've had a lot of friends follow me down. Some of the other festivals, there's the Trinidadia Blues, and then this year they're also doing 2 other ones that are under the Trinidadia brand.
Yeah.
But one of them is going to be an Americana music festival, and one of them is going to be a Latino music festival.
Nice. Excellent.
Yeah.
Excellent. That sounds cool. For everybody that's watching, we've got the website streaming for tickets for the comedy festival. So make sure you visit that site after this interview. Okay, not right now, but in a few minutes here. And we'll be seeing you down there. Elise and I can't wait. We've got our second shot coming up for the Pfizer vaccine in a couple weeks, and then after that, I think your event will be our first actual outing amongst other humans.
That's awesome. I am stoked you're coming down. There's actually, before we part ways, I teased this before the interview, so I want to tell you about it mainly, and then hopefully some of your audience enjoys it too. So June 14th through the 19th, we will be throwing Trinidad's first annual Goat Head Festival.
Right.
Yes. And so basically what this is my mother called me probably 2 or 3 months ago, and she had written down 4 ideas of what I should do in Trinidad as economic development projects.
Okay.
And so she read off some ideas, and they were good, like solid ideas, but like for the most part, I'm like, oh my God, I'm too busy to do anything else on top of what I'm doing. Like, but thanks for like thinking about this. But one of the ideas she pitched, it ended up getting my head spinning a little bit with ideas, but and it was a pretty like basic concept, but she was just like, you all should throw a crop festival. Like whatever is the city's biggest cash crop, you should throw a festival celebrating that. And I was like, yeah, that's cool, but Trinidad isn't really an agricultural community, at least not in like the farming sense.
Right.
We're a ranching community. So our biggest cash crop here would be hay. And I'm like, I wasn't that excited about like a hay festival. But then I got off the phone and I started thinking, I'm like, what else does grow excessively in Trinidad? And I thought about those goat head plants. So like for those of you that don't know them, they're all over Colorado, and they're these plants that come out of heavily compacted soil, and they vine out, and they produce these little seeds that have burrs coming out of them. So they stab into your shoes, they pop bike tires, they hurt your pets. They're really awful plants, nasty. And I hate them because they pop my bike tires all the time. Almost every time I go for a bike ride in Trinidad, I get my tire popped by one of these things. And so I decided we should throw a goat head festival instead of celebrating this plant, casting it out, like trying to say we don't want it in this community. And so basically the concept is for 5 days, the weekdays of that week, we are going to have events in the evening, 6 to 8 p.m., that are focused on bringing different demographic groups out and teaching them how to get rid of goat heads. So the first one is going to be pets and goat heads.
Okay.
And so that one's going to be at the dog park. And we're going to basically, everybody's going to come to the dog park. We're going to have food donated from a local restaurant. We're going to have some musicians out there playing music. But for 1 hour, everybody that comes just goes out in the field and they pull as many goat head plants as they can find, and they bag them up. And then after that hour, we're then going to have our local humane society come and give a little workshop on how to protect your pets in places where there's goat heads and cactus and other desert plants that might be harmful for your pet. And then after that, we're going to weigh everybody's goat heads and record who brought in the most goat heads. And then we're going to take all of those and hold on to them. And then, so we're going to have events like that every night of the week. So the first one's pets and goat heads. The second one is gardening and goat heads. The third one is bicycles and goat heads. The fourth one is trails and goat heads. And then the fifth one is kids and goat heads. And that one's going to be mainly focused on teaching kids how to identify dangerous plants that they want to avoid and not play near and stuff like that.
Nice. That sounds awesome.
Yeah, so that's what we're doing during the week. And then Saturday, every third Saturday of the month, we have an invasive species cleanup event on the Purgatoire River Trail.
Oh, good.
And so basically we're going to try and get all of those demographic groups all fired up about coming for this third Saturday river cleanup that day, getting involved. Then we're going to have a big community bicycle ride that afternoon. And like I said, the entire week, we're going to be weighing those goat heads and holding on to them.
Oh, my God.
I've also been working with the head of the art department at our college, and she is in the middle of building a giant 6-foot-tall goat head sculpture.
Nice.
That's not like the plants, but is actually like a physical like goat head.
Yeah.
So then we're going to have everybody that Saturday evening at sunset show up at this space, and we're going to bring all the goat heads everybody's been collecting up the entire week, dump them all over this wooden sculpture, and we're going to set it on fire. And we're going to have a huge bonfire party, casting the evil goat-headed spirit out of our valley for a summer of fun, of dog walking and bike riding and all these things that we don't want the goat-headed beasts to be interfering with.
So basically you guys are going to be making s'mores.
Yes. Yeah. We're going to be making s'mores, drinking some drinks. Yeah, should be fun. But using it as a way to bring the whole community together.
Nice.
And teach them how they can do their own work to try and get rid of goat heads to make this community better for all of those demographic groups in general. So.
Oh, that's fantastic. Just prior to you talking about, burning the goat heads, Tyler chimed in, can we burn giant goat head effigy? And of course, once you said yes, he was excited, So you got Tyler on your side.
That's great.
Can't wait to help out, and I think he's going to be a wonderful assistant. Hear that, Tyler?
I want to give a shout out to Tyler. I actually just met Tyler this morning at the trail cleanup, so I'm appreciative that he showed up to that and helped us clean up the trail today. So
nice. That's awesome. Yeah, one thing that kind of comes to mind too is like seeing, looking at some of these harmful plants, and as you're picking them and everything like that, what attributes might they have that could be beneficial? Like, can you pulverize them? Do they make like like something along the lines like hemp? Can they be fibrous? Can they make some kind of artificial, plastic or something like that?
I actually did look that up at one point, but I can't remember what I found. I think that you can. Yeah, I can't remember. I'd be making something up right now. I did look that up when we first started thinking of this festival idea. But for now, we're just going to burn them.
Yeah. Well, it's probably, it's like, wow, these things are so worthless that it's better if we just burn it.
Yeah, they're pretty bad, and they're not from here. They're actually native to Africa.
Wow, that's a long place to travel.
Totally. And so, yeah, they're not the best thing to have around here. They're not anything that was here before people started sailing over and bringing other invasive species in. But what's actually funny is they're also not like a Class A weed. They're not like the one that like the state of Colorado designates like get rid of this at all costs. But from talking to a lot of our invasive species experts in the area, they do think that this is a great mascot for all of the weeds, that if we can use the goat head as the one to educate people about weeds and what we want to try and get rid of in our area, it's a good one for that. So,
cool. Yeah, Wally. Yeah, it's been fantastic. Talking with you and learning so much more about the Comedy Fest and all the wonderful activities that you've got going on and the development of Trinidad. It's pretty inspirational, especially during the time of pandemic when people are so far apart and really haven't been able to be in close proximity safely and do it healthy. So this will be wonderful to see come to fruition.
Totally. No, I'm excited you're coming down for it. It'll be good to see you. And honestly, I will hit you up. I do think that we could probably do a cafe crash there. So let's chat about it.
I'm game. So just feel free hit me up with some details and everything. And we obviously we can do the cafe crash stuff and interview a bunch of the talent and stuff. For the COFO side, I'd love to interview a funeral director and see about obviously that's a tough subject, but
you should talk to him. I don't know if you know this, but Trinidad did used to have a horror film festival.
Right. And I remember you mentioning that. So that'd be pretty cool.
They filmed a bunch of it at his funeral home, and they used it as the venue to show a lot of the movies during the film festival. So
that's cool. Wow, that's awesome. That's so cool. Everybody watching, make sure to go to the website listed streaming below, thechieffestival.bigcartel.com. Get your tickets now. Now's the time to go. Not before, but now. Now that we're signing off and everything. So go help support the local community, Trinidad. The stand-up comedians and Wally and his efforts. Definitely check it out. It certainly is worthwhile. I'll be there, and Elise will be there with me. So we can't wait for this. This will be a lot of fun.
Awesome. Thank you for having me, man. It's really good chatting with you.
Yeah. So hang around for just a second, and to everybody else that has been watching, thanks so much. You guys have a great day. Help each other out, especially during these tough times. And we love you. Take care.